Good evening, dear sisters and brothers. Welcome to today's edition of Being Heartful Every Day. We are on day 83 of week 12, and the quality for the week is enthusiasm. So, my name is Prasanna Krishna. I'll be facilitating the session today. Welcome, a very hearty welcome to all of you. Let's start the evening session now. Before we start, a gentle reminder to all of us that we should try to share the master classes with one or two people who may be interested in starting Heartfulness. And these people could be our associates in friends and family circles. So please do spread the word. It's important that all of us practice Heartfulness and achieve the egregore the master keeps talking about. Also circulate this session details to people who are already practicing Heartfulness so they can also join and all of us can benefit from it. We'll move on to the reading part today. Yesterday we were reading about prayer, and we'll continue our reading on prayer. We were in this section on where do we begin. We had completed the first paragraph where Daji mentions that Babuji has brilliantly summarized the philosophy and the practice of prayer. So let's read what Babuji's philosophy on the practice, Babuji's summary on the philosophy and practices of prayer are. We start from the second paragraph here. When the world emerged into the present form, the central point was already rooted deep in all beings. This being a part of the Supreme, it turns our attention towards the source. In prayer, we try to reach up to that point. This is, however, possible only when we create a similar state within. This requires practice. It can be attained by resigning ourselves to the divine will, which is absolutely simple and tranquil. Apparently, it seems to be very difficult, though in fact it is not so. It is not difficult for those who aspire for it. When a person creates in themselves a strong craving for the absolute, they are indeed in a state of prayer. And it is for everyone to strive for it. When a person enters into that state, even for a moment, their prayer is granted, but it requires continued practice to accomplish it. If you read this with an open heart and a contemplative mind and reflect upon it deeply, its essence will permeate into your consciousness and become one with your being. Then, each time you practice prayer, it will reveal itself in magnificent ways. Remember, prayer is not a static link. It is a dynamic link, a lively link with the source. A final note of caution. When facing worldly troubles, prayer is to be offered as a last resort. For example, if your sister is suffering due to certain lack, would you compensate that lack right away? Or would you pray and just be happy by saying, you have done your part? If you fall overboard at sea, would you only pray for help or would you start swimming? So, prayer as a means of asking for worldly help is offered when we have exhausted all means available to us to solve the problem. This article is by Daji. There are, just because we have completed the thing, there are a couple of things which in this article, which I found was very, very deep and at least I thought worth the second reading. So I'll, if all of us are okay with it, I'll just read that same thing, those repeated paragraphs. See here, in whom do we pray for? This thing, this sub section where Babuji mentions whom do we pray for? In either case, the idea of prayer that Babuji has proposed is radically different from the prayer of traditional religion. It's a deep craving that we create within, a craving to be one with the source from which we emanated, and which is still the very foundation of our being. It's a deep cry from the bottom of our hearts that signals the source to move towards us. We don't ask for anything specific when we pray. It is a relationship that's based on deep trust and inner knowing that we are already that. So this is one interpretation. We will read one paragraph from here before we wind up. I think this is also very important that we reread it time and again. In fact, I would suggest that all of us reread this guide for living, user's guide to living by Taji. However, I just read this one particular paragraph. In nature, wherever there is a flow, it is from a higher level to a lower level, or the transference is set by positive and negative polarity. Always a differential is required, as when two things are at the same level, there is no flow. If we can create a state of vacuum in the heart, we connect in prayer. The flow of grace is imminent. Love fills our being. If we create that state of supplicancy within ourselves, which means to place ourselves at the lowest level we can be. We let our heart become so receptive, so yielding. This tilt happens with devotion, the attitude or state of acceptance that the giver is the Lord and we are humble receivers. Devotion creates a vacuum in the heart which can be filled by grace gushing in. I think we'll stop our reading today. Let's introspect on what we have read today, especially the devotion part where I think Daji has been talking more and more of it these days. Love is important, but devotion is what leads us to a complete state of surrender. He has been talking about it. And I think the same thing is written here. Let's introspect on this. At 9 o'clock, we'll start our prayer. So let's introspect on what you have read so far. Well, it's 9 p.m. now. Let's start a universal prayer. We sit with a very deep, prayerful attitude and pray that all brothers and sisters are being filled with love and devotion, and real faith is growing stronger in them. I repeat that. The attitude of deep prayerfulness is very important here. All brothers and sisters are being filled with love and devotion, and real faith is growing stronger in them. हम गहरी प्रार्थना भाव में बैठेंगे और ये प्रार्थना करेंगे कि सभी भाई बहन प्रेम और भक्ति से भर रहे हैं और उनमें सच्ची श्रद्धा दृढ़ होती जा रही है। फिर से पढ़ूंगा मैं। वो भाव है ना, प्रार्थना का, गहरी प्रार्थना का भाव, वो सबसे मुख्य है। हम ये प्रार्थना करेंगे कि सभी भाई बहन प्रेम और भक्ति से भर रहे हैं और उनमें सच्ची श्रद्धा दृढ़ होती जा रही है। हम शुरू करेंगे, विश्व प्रार्थना शुरू करेंगे। Thank you. We can gently open our eyes while trying to retain our condition. So we come to the end of today's session. We'll all depart with a reminder that let's all sit for our bedtime prayer before we go to bed, reflect on the day's activities, and in a supplicant mode, beg for forgiveness for whatever unintentional mistakes have happened from our side, and also resolve not to repeat it. So let's do our bedtime prayer before we get. So see you tomorrow at 8:50 p.m. in the evening. Morning, because there's a Sunday satsang, we are not meeting tomorrow. So thanks a lot to everybody. See you all tomorrow evening. Good night.